Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film Crystal Fairy, or as it's called in the title card, Crystal Fairy and the Magical Cactus and 2012. A young man named Jamie, played by Michael Cera, who is on a vacation in Chile, basically to do lots of drugs and do Chilean drugs. He's kind of like a typical American drugged out guy. At the beginning of the film, when they're all doing coke in a back room, he's talking about how he read The Doors of Perception, which is about as interesting and pretentious as reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And he's planning to go with his friend and his friend's brothers to a beach and cook up this cactus, which when you cook it up has psychedelic effects. It takes like 12 hours. And they're going to go on this beach that's far away to do it. And then at the party, he meets this girl, the titular character, Crystal Fairy, played by Gabby Hoffman, and invites her on this trip. Kind of, he's on drugs, he's open to things, hey, what's up, man? And it kind of backfires on him because the next morning he remembers he invited this crazy hippie girl who he thought was kind of embarrassing herself at the party, and then they're stuck with her. And the film kind of plays off the fact that he's trying to save the trip from her, but he's become really more of the jerk and more of the problem with the trip than she is. I like the idea of Crystal Fairy as a drug movie more than a lot of them, because most of them are Hollywood films. There's usually a lot of stupid special effects when someone gets high. They're kind of made for like dorm room psychology kind of crap. And Crystal Fairy is really not like that at all. It's very like, there's no kind of special effect drug sequences. It's very modest in what it's trying to do and how to show this kind of drug trip. Now, not saying, they're actually on a journey. I'm not drug trip. You get what I'm saying. The whole film is very simple in what it's trying to accomplish. And this film was actually made because Sebastian Silva, the director, and Michael Cera wanted to make something, and they're making this film Magic, and it got delayed. And they decided like, hey, let's make this film on the fly. And apparently there was really no script. Right before they shot things, he was telling them what to say. So it was very improvised. And I actually thought it worked out, and kind of, for the most part, I thought this film was actually fairly organized and worked fairly well for what it was trying to do, despite how it was made. Apparently Silva's gone on a trip like this, and it's very unsympathetic to especially Michael Cera's character of Jamie, who they call Paulo. The brothers call him Paulo. Actually, the brothers are played by Silva's real-life brothers, which is interesting, and I actually like them quite a bit. They don't say as much, they don't have as much dialogue, so they're easy to forget. Their reactions to some of this stuff are very funny, and they're kind of like almost like the audience surrogates in some points. Michael Cera's performance is really unsympathetic. I think that's interesting, especially for a movie star, because movie stars typically are very sympathetic to who they're playing. And not that that's the problem I have with all these actors. You can get that to work for you, certainly. It's just a different theory. But I think the theory behind Michael Cera's performance and the way this character is portrayed is very unsympathetic, because he's a jerk in this movie. He thinks he's like this world-class traveler, but he's really just a kid who's interested in getting high. The part where they're driving on the trip and they're almost at the beach and he just wants to get to the beach to cook this cactus. He just drives through this big, beautiful terrain. They're like, no, let's stop. And he like begrudgingly stops. Like, he doesn't want to stop. He just wants to get high and start cooking this cactus and trip out on this beach. Like, that's all that matters to him. But he's become such a jerk because he's so determined with his stupid tunnel vision. Michael Cera, he's always playing this kind of boyish, goofy, silly performances. This is an interesting performance and really shows him growing as an actor, and that he has a real future in playing jerks. I mean, I saw that in the most recent season of Arrested Development, and I see that in this. I think more so in this. This is a great performance from him. I think he thinks Crystal Fairy, who he hates, who's trying to be this hippie, she stands for all this stuff, and Michael Cera's character Jamie knows that Crystal Fairy is bullshit, but in the way he's bullshit, because I think he thinks he's cool, he's down, he's low-key because he does drugs, and he's really not like that at all, and he's using that as kind of an image, in the same way that Crystal Fairy has an image around her as well, and this image that makes them seem like they're liberal and open to things. And just because you have the image of being liberal or open to things doesn't mean, in fact, that your attitude actually is. And it's kind of interesting having them play off of each other, because neither of them think they are that, but both of them are, so they have to they're fighting each other in that way. And Gabby Hoffman, who I remember from Now and Then, is very naked in this movie. Like, she's naked a lot. I thought she was really good because she was so irritating. like I would hate to be in a room with her. I've never seen a Sebastian Silva film before this. which is embarrassing. But I will now because I am interested in seeing Magic. As a drug movie, this is a very smart film. It's so loose, but it works very well within itself. I think it should have ended a lot sooner. It has a very powerful scene at the end, but it's kind of superfluous. It's like after they come back from their drug trip, the film really should have ended. It's like probably like 5 to 6 minutes too long. Gabby Hoffman gives a great performance at the end in the end scene, and it's a really powerful performance, and she did nothing wrong. I should really stress that. She really did a great performance in that scene, but that scene just does not need to be in there. Like everything after when they get back. It's kind of like a very loose film. It does feel very loose, although it is kind of semi-structured, and it felt like the film was trying to end on a point. Its looseness would have worked a lot better if it had more of a loose ending than kind of a structured ending. And I think that's something that I've noticed with a lot of like looser structured films, and have commented on that, especially with the Apatow School. Not just because Sarah's in this. If you're gonna do a looser film, you have to commit to it completely, or it usually kind of falls apart. It just doesn't really feel as natural. It feels a little inauthentic. That's the problem with this ending, really. It's acting like some sort of a point that it doesn't really need, like it's trying to justify itself when it doesn't need to do that. Crystal Fairy, it's an interesting drug movie, and I think a lot of them rely really heavily on special effects and doing like these cool, crazy, trippy things because they want to be movies that people who are into that sort of culture can get high to, theoretically, if you were to do that. But Crystal Fairy, I don't think, is interested in that so much. It's trying to be more modest in its approach, and it's so much about character. And if you think about when you have a bunch of people getting high on a trip, it's mainly people talking, it's mainly character development, and it's mainly loose, and it's not very well structured. And putting that into a structured thing has always, like, you always have to make them do something. And it's interesting that this film is so loose. It's more like the reality of it. This is just them hanging out, kind of getting high in their journey to get high. I think it really captures something about getting high with a bunch of friends that a lot of these films, they're not necessarily trying to do, but I think this film succeeds in that, where a lot of these drug films are trying to do a lot more with it. And this film shines in its own modesty. So if you have seen Crystal Fairy and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. Can you see this shirt? See? Cool shirt. I can never get all the shirt in here. My friend John Familia, who I went to school with, did this shirt. Check it out.